Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. Welcome to Liberated Sisters. Today, I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. Honored to be coming to you live once again from Morris Media Studios right here in Leimert Park. Today we're going to be talking about gentrification. How is that wave across the country affecting us right here in South Los Angeles? My guests for today are Brother Damien Goodmon of the Crenshaw Subway Coalition and also Brother Charles Brister of 1-800-UNITE-US. He's going to talk about the impact on black businesses, and we want you to call in. We'll give that number right now. It is 323-293-3375, 323-293-3375. We're going to be taking your calls for the brothers today about this issue. How is it impacting you in your community? Education, everything from businesses, where we shop, right, brothers? Everything that we do, how is gentrification affecting us right here in South Los Angeles? So that's today's Liberated Sisters coming to you right now. However, we're going to go right now into the Liberated Sisters Justice Report. For the Justice Report, it's coming right out of the Million Man March 20th anniversary, Justice or Else. That was in 2015. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called for an economic boycott of Christmas in the run-up to Justice or Else. This was on the mall at Washington, D.C. That call continues to reverberate around the country with activists, Black Lives Matter, other organizations out of Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C. People are really doing a lot in this boycott/boycott movement. So what is it about? We're going to hear a clip from Minister Farrakhan where he's detailing boycott Christmas shopping. Black dollars matter. If black lives don't matter, then black dollars they shouldn't have. Let's redistribute the pain through economic withdrawal. Let's support our own black businesses during this holiday shopping season and year round. So we're going to hear more from Minister Farrakhan on that. And I want to also point your attention to the Final Call newspaper, my current cover story in the great Final Call newspaper, Up with Jesus, Down with Santa. Up with Jesus, Down with Santa. Let's hear from Minister Farrakhan.
So we've decided, as you know, to boycott the winter holidays. It's not a new idea at all. Did you know that Frederick Douglass, one of our great ancestors, listen to what he said about these holidays. A Christmas thought from Frederick Douglass. Quote, "The holidays are part and parcel of the gross fraud, wrong, and inhumanity of slavery. From what I know of the effect of these holidays upon the slave, I believe them to be among the most effective means in the hands of the slave master in keeping down the spirit of insurrection. These holidays serve as conductors or safety valves to carry off the rebellious spirit of enslaved humanity." Did you know that in 1962, Medgar Evers decided, because of the ill treatment of the blacks in Mississippi, particularly in the city of Jackson, that they would not support those big businesses in Jackson, Mississippi with black dollars. The boycott was so successful that the mayor had to come out and literally beg black people, spend money. We'll protect you. We'll give you police protection from the boycotters. Unfortunately, within a few months, Medgar Evers was assassinated. That same year, they bombed the church in Birmingham, Alabama, and several of our young girls were killed. Dr. Martin Luther King was so upset, he said, let's boycott Christmas. Way back in '63, Dr. King wanted to do this to redistribute the pain that we were feeling over the loss of Medgar Evers, over the loss of our children in that bombing. And I think it was Roy Wilkins of the NAACP said, well, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do it because we don't want to deprive our children of their toys. And of course, there'll be some who will say the same now. But keep your eye on them because they're working for the enemy. They are not the leaders that you think they are if in the throes of our pain as a people, we want to hold our money. And some of these weak leaders will come and say, no, we don't want to deprive the children of their toys. Not today. We're not going to show up. We intend to make our unity felt in America. Stand up, black people. Stand up, brown people. Stand up, indigenous people. Keep your money and let's show the world our unity and watch them bow.
Absolutely powerful and absolutely possible. Let's bring in Brother Damien Goodmon and Brother Charles Brister right now. I really would like to just ask you all, and I wanted to go right into gentrification first, but I'm compelled to ask, what do you think about what you heard from Minister Farrakhan? And then let's dive into gentrification.
Well, first off, Sister Charlene, I appreciate all that you do in educating our people, and it is a true honor for me to be here this morning to talk about this important issue.
Likewise.
And the minister articulates powerfully that in this capitalist, white supremacist system that we live in, there is tremendous power in our ability to withhold the limited dollars that we have to those corporations that are busy oppressing us, those that don't hire us, those that are not involved in our struggle. And at the same time, redirect those dollars towards businesses like where we are now, right here in Limerick Park Village. Yeah. There's tremendous power there, and it takes a level of consciousness that I think that you do see and you will experience as you walk in this area specifically. But I guess we want to broaden that. We want those that maybe don't live right in the surrounding area of Limerick Park Village to come and be part of that, come and be part of the Crenshaw corridor and the Inglewood, while we still got Inglewood, and Compton and other places where we do have some black businesses needed. But ultimately, we've tried the elected route, so to speak. Mm-hmm. We've tried the marching in the streets route. Yeah. I think definitely the way in which we'll be heard and we'll begin to see the process of being taken more seriously is when we take the economic route, that of economic pain, call them economic sanctions against the white supremacist capitalist system that we live in. Yeah,
call it what you want, but just hold it, right?
Right.
Thank you. How about you, Brother Charles?
Well, first of all, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you so much for inviting us on the show today.
Absolutely. And
when I was listening to the minister speak, I was reminded of the Million Man March. Mm-hmm. When the word went out to, if you do spend money, buy black. Yeah. And Carl Nelson put that word out over the radio on the day of the march, and he said, call 1-800-UNITE-US, to find your black businesses. And the phone started ringing like 4 a.m. and didn't stop until 2 o'clock the next morning.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So, the more we spend with each other, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah.
A lot of our problems and solutions are economics. 90% of black men arrested are unemployed, right? A lot of the police stops are made because somebody didn't keep up with their registration, And so economics is the key to our future. Whenever we spend $1, we're helping somebody's family. Yeah. Right? So let's help out our own families.
That's right.
All right. So I'm with the minister as far as the message about Christmas. Again, if we are going to buy presents, let's buy black. We got some excellent black businesses right here in Leimert Park. We got the S1 bookstores. We have some Zambezi says beautiful gifts for Christmas and also Kwanzaa. Yeah. Let's keep in mind Kwanzaa. That's a wonderful time for us to give gifts and celebrate our culture. Yeah. And I want to thank Dr. Karenga for giving us that holiday.
Yeah, Dr. Maulana.
So there's some great things that we can do for each other with the money that we already spend. We spend over $1 trillion every year, over $3 billion a day, more money than the whole country of Canada. We just have to redirect that to us so that our families can benefit.
Thank you. He's absolutely right. We're a very rich nation within a nation. And shout out to Queen Amina also.
Queen Amina. Sister Amina.
Sisters Marketplace right here. I mean, we have so much here. Let's jump into what's at stake with these businesses and other entities in our community, Brother Damien, as we see gentrification roll in.
Right. So I have the good pleasure of founding and leading the Crenshaw Subway Coalition, which has been involved in our successor organization, Fix Expo, in trying to make sure that the transit lines that have been built through our community would be built equitably, be built in a manner that did not decimate the community. We've had some victories, some challenges. Ultimately, anytime you get an agency that doesn't want to spend any money in improving a rail line in a black and brown community, and black specifically in Southwest LA, to dedicate over $1.5 billion that they weren't going to dedicate otherwise, it's a victory, I consider.
Yeah, and congratulations on that, and thank you.
No doubt. It took a lot of work, a lot of struggle, a lot of community meetings, education, and a lot of confrontation with elected officials, some of which look like you and me. But when we established the Crenshaw Subway Coalition back in 2011, we had 3 pieces. One, we wanted to make sure the line was designed the way the community wanted. We wanted it all underground on Crenshaw Boulevard with a station in Liberated. We got them to go from about a half a mile to 2.5 or 2 miles out of the 3 miles on Crenshaw. We got the station in Liberated. 2, we wanted to make sure that black people were working on it because, as you know, 2 hottest places to find a black man in the city of Los Angeles is on a construction site and at a hockey game. You might find more at the hockey game than you will on the construction site.
That's the same, man.
Yeah.
But the third was we knew that these lines historically could be economic generators, but we wanted that to be for us. We weren't going to be in the process of gentrifying us ourselves. We wanted the economic development that was a product of the rail line to be predicated on local economic empowerment principles. There's a big difference between what we consider economic development in the city of Los Angeles and South LA and what our elected officials consider community economic development versus what we should consider economic development. If it's true economic development, it should be improvement in the circumstances and situations of the people who surround that project, right?
Yeah.
And you can't find one project that's been built in South LA where you can say the surrounding community, let's just go back to 1992, right, the uprising, where over the last 25 years that there's been a substantive change and improvement in the conditions of the existing residents. So as we began to see, the design of the line had been already done and started building, and as we began to work with organizations, got to give a shout out to Lola at the Black Worker Center and her team there. Some people get placed, a lot more than you would have otherwise, but nowhere near enough. We began to shift our focus toward this gentrification tsunami that we began to see sweeping not just South LA, not just LA, not just East LA, but really most urban centers in capitalist countries throughout the world. And so this is the key point with this, right? And I have to emphasize it because too few people, the media doesn't write about it. This is, yes, it is legit. When the white person walking their dog suddenly considers me a threat when they come into my community because they have their traditional fears of black men or brown men, that is a problem. When they change the dynamics of my community organization from talking about after-school programs and safe parks to dog parks, that is a problem, right? Mm-hmm. And people need to integrate into the fabric of these unique working class, low income black and brown communities, as opposed to try and take them over in a colonialist mindset. But there's the bigger perpetrators, and this is the key piece. It's not these individual battles with individuals coming in. It's against global economic power, the global investor class, which has decided, especially in the aftermath of the 2007-2008 financial crash, where a bunch of people on Wall Street were doing stuff that if we tried to do on the street corner, we'd gone to jail for. Right?
Robbed and pillaged homes.
Robbed, pillaged, lied,
stole land.
Exactly. But after that, and I just have to say it, it was from the federal government, Barack Obama, on down to the local government. We allow private equity firms, we allow Wall Street, we allow mega investors, people who got more money than we can even think of accumulating in a lifetime, to kind of come into this housing market and begin to manipulate it. Let me be specific. The largest private equity firms in the country own about 8,000 houses in Los Angeles. Now, many of them were given those houses during foreclosure, and black people specifically, we had predatory lending going on. People who were entitled to better loans were given poor loans. And, we had the flippers knocking on doors, giving grandma bottom dollar, and then turning that house and doubling it. We have a whole lot of stuff taking place. But they were given these homes, and they decided they were given these homes under the at least statement at the time that they would return them back to the market and quote unquote stabilize the market. They've held them, and the reason they've held them at the same time that they're now all of a sudden. You're saying the words now. It's a running joke. Used to be you could never see Hyde Park mentioned in the L.A. Times without the word crime, followed by in the L.A. Crimes, rather.
L.A. crime.
But now, they talk up the area. Now it's all great and wonderful. And largely that's because they're trying to increase the value of their investment. They're trying to, and the word is market manipulation. There is nothing about that house that 15 years ago was going for $200,000 in Leimert Park and is now on the market for $620,000. You didn't put gold-plated toilets in there. You didn't add a second and a third story. Right. So what happened? What is this concept of land value? It's all completely speculative. It's all completely fantasy. It's all based on fantasy in many respects, and it's being manipulated to the detriment of us. There are not enough black people that own large swaths of lands to compensate for the black people who were harmed in this gentrification, and the brown people who were harmed in this gentrification piece. And what we see almost immediately, and it's being facilitated by local government. I mean, the major decisions about land use, the transfer of ownership of local land is in the hands of local government. So you got to call them out. You got to call out the board of supervisors, Mark Ridley Thomas. You got to call out the city council, Marquise Harris Dawson, Karen Price. Definitely Herb Weston, the president of the city council, and undoubtedly the mayor, we call him Garcetti, who engages in Garcettification of the city of Los Angeles. As a council member, Eric Garcetti in Hollywood, he facilitated what is becoming the model for the city, whereby many of these rent-controlled working-class homes were demolished and replaced with luxury towers that somewhat sit vacant. And the result was a loss of almost 13,000 working-class Latinos, low-income and no-income Latinos, despite the fact that there was an increase, quote-unquote, in the number of units, right? Yeah. Their logic is we're building more housing to house people now. If you did that, then why are you seeing a reduction? Well, it's real simple. A more affluent person takes up more space. So that 2-bedroom apartment that had a family of 4 is now a 1-bedroom. It's now a bachelor pad for a more affluent, likely white or foreign person that's living in it now. That's if it's actually being occupied. A lot of this is foreign money that's coming in because they feel that they can get a better return on real estate in America than they can putting it in their own bonds or even American bonds, which is quite a statement. I mean, again, 15 years ago, that house in Leimert Park was going for $200. Now it's going for $620. That's a pretty good return. we on the wrong side of this issue. Some
Crazy.
people would argue. No,
Yeah.
no, we are not, because ultimately it is our people who are suffering. It's not just about our individual wealth creation. It's about whether we have a community where we have honestly had to fight to get in here. We've had to fight historic divestment from the public and the private sector, and now we have to fight to stay and maintain. And one of the key pieces in this whole gentrification thing is for them to get those of us who are already here and have endured the struggle and have built something beautiful to not recognize what we have. To make it seem as though these are liberated. I mean, it's almost like I say, they're like folk that, you know, the true OGs, the original gentrifiers. Columbus coming in, making sure they are you know, making us better people by coming in and providing stuff that we can't afford. Yoga studios with $70 sessions and lattes that go for $7 as opposed to the $1.50, you know, coffee that we were all cool with. No, ultimately, we have built something here. We've built social safety nets. And I'm just talking about the community in the context of being black in America. Right. And all that entails. What is it? Black women earn something like 55 cents or 58 cents for every dollar a white man makes. Right. We have built a network whereby, you know, if we're late to work or late coming home from work, that we can call somebody to pick up our kids. And we've built, based on our church, our mosque, our faith networks, an undergird for us to live in this society that we have. We have built political power, the potential of political power. I'll say it that way because I think there's a long way for folk to go who are currently in seats of power. That gives us the ability to assert certain things that otherwise would not even be heard, right? Wow. Auntie Maxine couldn't be Auntie Maxine, as they like to call her now. She's always been Maxine to us, right?
That's right.
If she was representing a district that didn't look the way it did, right, she wouldn't be comfortable to make the strong case that she is. Sister Karen Bass could not be continually talking about this black identity extremist. BS, COINTELPRO 2, if she wasn't representing an area that had as many black people as it does.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then you get down to just the basic social services, the many nonprofits that pick up and provide a bridge that the private sector to compensate for the inequities, the discrimination that we endure in the private sector and the public sector. So when you take this community, these relationships, these just not our familial relationships in which we rely upon each other, our family relationships and friends, and you disperse us to forsaken places like Victorville. Ain't nothing good in Victorville. Ain't nothing nice about Victorville. I mean, I love the people of Victorville. I love you, especially my people that have been pushed out there.
Displaced.
They got pushed out, and they're taking and breaking up all of these relationships. And it's critical that people understand this is not just the weakening of a community, that local community. It's a weakening of a people. Right? Our ability to collectively withstand all that we must in this white supremacist capitalistic society that we live in.
Wow.
And so, you know, this has become the charge of my life. And I have no illusion as to the power that we're going up against. And our people need to recognize that, right? These are the largest financial instruments these companies are doing this in the world. These are the most powerful people in the world, and they have bought local politicians up and down the state. And so we have to come together and basically help educate each other, support each other, and then more importantly, get people to recognize that we have a value system that is not theirs. Let me conclude.
And
with
it's
this.
valuable to us.
Exactly. Let me conclude with this. So in August, before we had our great, I'm sure we'll talk about it, the Gentrification Action Summit. But in August, we had a meeting at Christ Temple Church down here. Got to give a shout out to the Bishop, Bishop Lindsay there, who always opens the space for us on 52nd.
Thank you, Bishop Lindsay.
Thank you, Bishop Lindsay. Whereby, I mean, we just have 4 days notice. We called it a gentrification meeting. We didn't have time to make phone calls or knock on doors. We had over 200 people show up. And we talked about gentrification, and people were passionate about it. And traditionally, people think, well, homeowners always get up. They always come up when it comes to gentrification. Some of the strongest words against gentrification were coming from black and brown homeowners in this immediate area. And it took me a second to step back from that, right?
Well, wait. But some of the politicians are saying that the homeowners are glad that the property values are rising.
No. See, here's the piece. You got to break it down, right? If it was just about land values, why didn't they cash out last time that we had a bubble? These are people who bought their houses at $35,000, $150,000, and in 2005, these houses were going for $450,000, $500,000, a lot more than they'd seen. See, it is that capitalistic mindset that says the only thing that you should be concerned about in the home that you created is your land value. No, these homeowners had to fight to come into this community, had to fight to maintain it, and they want to fight to keep it. And if anything, their value system is broader than just a land value. They're most concerned about if they pass our elders, where their kids are going to be able to hold on to that and recognize the struggle they did. There's a value system at play in this system, in this community, that is broader and deeper and more, I would say, ancestral than in our roots than their simple mindset that the only thing that you should see when you walk up to your house is the dollar sign with the land is predicated on. Absolutely. And you just have to knock on the doors. Now, I'm not saying every homeowner is that way, but the vast majority of people that you talk to, these homeowners who are concerned about gentrification, is because they're concerned about this community that they built, these community values, their ability to be safer. I'm not going to say safe, safer in a black community, are at threat.
This is Liberated Sisters. This is Brother Damien Goodmon. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad, and this is Brother Charles Brister. We're talking about gentrification in South Los Angeles, California, and the world, actually. Nationally. I want to ask you this as we get ready to come and dig more into black businesses.
I got a question for Damien as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. And if you have one, please call. The hotline is 323-293-3375. Brother Damien, as you continue, let me push back, right, for those who might be wanting to push back. So I saw on Facebook a comment from Supervisor Ridley Thomas. I already mentioned that. And I think if this has happened before, forgive me, because, again, sometimes I'm caught up into my writing and I miss, as of late, some of our major events in the community. But people are not all displeased about what's happening. Those homeowners we talked about saying that their property values are rising. You just answered that. Well, then why wouldn't they have cashed out the last time when the rates went up? But I saw a post on Facebook when we were looking at the threads about the summit that was recently held. And one sister said, if these people are coming in and developing the community, then why didn't we do it before? So she thought that people were pretty much salty, so to speak, or upset because we hadn't done anything with our community and now someone's doing something with it and we're upset. What do you think about that notion that we haven't done anything when we have the Simply Wholesomes? Although it's not Leimert Park, it's right nearby, and we have Earl's and other places, and not just restaurants, but I'm saying we have staples here, mainstays. But go ahead.
So there's, you got to back up and recognize who controls the banks, the ability to lend, right? Who controls the land use decisions, right? Who makes? A perfect example is that new building that was built downtown, the Korean Air Tower.
The big.
What do they call it? Intercontinental?
I just call it the tallest building.
Yeah. Which is funny because all you have to do is put up a spire and it's taller than the building that actually has a floor, right? City Council gave them, I think it was over $70 or $80 million in tax credits or tax forgiveness. They don't have to pay the hotel tax. Wow. What would that have done for Crenshaw? If you just between the 10 freeway and Florence, just drop 80 million for the businesses that are here. Or a developer that wants to do something that benefits the community. And that's where you get down to the basic piece. Is this development for us? No.
That's the question.
I mean, the Crenshaw Mall, which redevelopment plan, which I say is a housing project design masquerading as a mall redevelopment. It's 2.1 million square feet. 1.2 million of those square feet is new housing. 961 units. The initial proposal was all market rate. What does market rate mean? Market rate, to afford a market rate apartment or condo in the city of Los Angeles, you have to make $114,000 per year, $115,000 a year. This is the city's own data. So what's the median household income for a family of four in Leimert Park? It ain't that. 9008 is $37,000. 90016 is $38,000. So if you're building housing that is nearly triple what the median household income is for a family of four in the surrounding area, then how can you claim that's a development for the community? Now, that's a development that is intended to artificially inflate surrounding rental properties, both business, small business property, along with apartments, and push out the existing residents. It was an interesting statement. We went to the City Planning Commission. And we're pushing back against that mall. We're going to have a major community meeting on the 8th of January where we're going to talk about some of our recommendations on how to change that mall. January 8th.
January 8th.
I haven't yet got the location, but you can go to CrenshawSubway.org or Crenshaw Subway on Facebook, and we'll definitely post it there. And the developer, and I always make this point, I didn't say some black people wouldn't benefit from gentrification. I said black people wouldn't benefit from gentrification because the developer is one of the richest black men in the country.
Yeah,
Quentin
Primo the third,
based out of Chicago. We know a little bit about him, don't we? And when he came to the commission and the planning commissioner to present his mall, this is several months ago, and the commissioner said, why didn't you include any affordable housing in your project? No affordable housing.
Check this out.
He said, I mean, this is quite a statement that he felt comfortable saying it publicly. There's already a disproportionate amount of affordable housing in the community already. Basically saying, this is too much of a working class community.
Wow.
We're specifically building this to bring in more affluent people. And it's just an illusion because I know people think this. If you think there's just this army of black millionaires and people who make over $100,000 who are just rushing to come into they would have been here already. Right?
They're planted already.
They would have. I mean, it's an illusion. We are, whether we want to recognize it or not, and it's got nothing to do with our own abilities. It has the fact to do with that we live in a white supremacist capitalist society. We are low income. The average wealth of a black woman in America is like $5. The average wealth of a black family in America is like $11,000, whereas the average wealth of a white family in America is $150,000. So how are we supposed to compete in this environment, right? We do have to do what we can with what limited amount we have. Practice group economics, support small black businesses, support our community centers, go to Simply Wholesome and Zempi's Bazaar and S1. I don't buy a book anywhere except S1.
Lori's Juicy Juice in Carson.
Yeah.
Go south. As we come to your question, Brother Charles, and thanks for being patient with me, I do want to mark, as he said, and reiterate that this is happening when we have the most in black politicians, and we would say if we could just get our people in office, So I think we need to have a round table with them whereby we can talk to them more about what's happening. But let Brother Charles get his question.
An awakening is what needs to take place.
I think it's happening, but it's like, hurry up.
Right.
Well, first of all, Damien, thank you for using the 1-800-UNITE US to help promote the Resistance event. It was an incredible event.
Yes.
And the one question I had is you mentioned we need to call out the local politicians. Okay, so once we call them out, then what is it that we want them to do?
Right. I mean, the piece about gentrification is there are no less than 24 critical policies that need to be implemented. Right now, it's just at a basic level to get them to recognize that they represent working and low income, and in some cases, no income people of color, and there's none, and they need to fight for that. When you contrast what you see some politicians like Chokwe Lumumba, who's continuing the legacy of his father in Jackson, Mississippi. When you contrast what they're doing at Ross Baraka and Newark versus what the black politicians we have doing here, it's night and day.
Night and day.
It's
Maybe we
night
can
and
run
day.
Attorney Nana Jumphy
Hey,
for office.
Mike Fewer, we like to call him Fewer, is busy prosecuting protesters. If Rosa Parks was around, he'd cuff her.
Yeah, as they
and if the
did.
man thinks he wants to run for mayor, I'm sorry, I'm getting people in trouble around here. See what she done did to me?
Liberated sisters.
Liberated. We got to speak truth here.
So there are examples of black politicians that are doing the right thing. And
There are.
We need to
Most
find out what they're doing.
Richmond,
and have our-
even in the state of California. I mean,
Yeah.
and part of what we wanted to do, so the Resist Gentrification Action Summit, this beautiful event,
Yeah.
and on December 2nd, we put it at Audubon Middle School in the heart of Leimert Park. 2 weeks' notice, over 800 people came through. Mm-hmm. The biggest
2 weeks.
display, biggest meeting to resist gentrification in anyone's recent memory, definitely since the 70s. And we pulled that off by coming together with over 47 different groups in the housing justice, black rights, civil rights, workers' rights, unions, all coming together to advance it. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do it was two-pronged. One, we needed to talk about the threat that we were undergoing. So we need to talk about protective strategies, why it's necessary that Inglewood adopt rent control, which the black politicians there are opposed to, I can tell you. And statewide, there's this bill called Costa-Hawkins that needs to be repealed, and we'll be working to repeal that in 2018. Sister, I look forward to coming back sometime in the future talking about that in more detail.
Open door policy.
Appreciate you. And so the protective policies, and then also how do we get what we call the at-risk homeowner, the person who can't afford and can't get the loan to do the $30,000 repair on their roof, and as a consequence has to sell, or the widow or widower who just can't maintain the property. How do we get them how do we protect them just as much as we protect the renters? And then in addition to protecting and maintaining what we have, advancing a different form of economic development, this concept called community wealth building, this solidarity economy, these things called cooperatives, right? We're bringing that back. Community land trusts, where the community owns the land and has a stake in determining what goes in the land. People's IPOs, or people in the community, are able to invest and be shareholders in the development. This is true community development.
Right.
What they're doing right now is they just bring in, at best, take Primo as an example, a rich black guy, and usually it's not a black guy, but nonetheless, a rich black guy who makes a whole bunch of money, and it doesn't transform the things in the community. I'll just give you one perfect example, right? So the median household income for a family of four in all the census tracts in Baldwin Village, which is right next to the mall, there's not one that's over $28,000, which is telling, right? How you survive with a family of four making less than $28,000. And in the census tract that is specific to the mall, it's $19,900. So what does that tell you? And we're doing this study now. It tells you a lot of people have been cut out of participating in the economy because of the new Jim Crow that we live within, where basically if you have any kind of record, it's not just felonies, but really any kind of record or any running into the law, that you were prohibited from participating in the economy and earning and to take care of your family. These are people who are somewhat disabled. Some are disabled. Some of them have been hobbled in other ways. A lot of them have minimum wage, part-time jobs. They're barely surviving. And in the case of just take, for example, mothers and fathers who are single mothers and fathers. Well, if you're able to even bring a job that pays a small wage, $18, $19, $20 an hour, if you have a kid and you're not providing child care, well, that person is going to spend more in their child care than they're going to be, or a significant portion of what they're earning on child care. So wouldn't a development in a community that is this low income provide basic free childcare for everybody? I mean, it's a key point that I make with the Chipotle that's in the mall, right? Sisters heard me say this before. Yes, that Chipotle. Now, I don't have to drive to Culver City or down by USC to get to Chipotle. But that worker is not any better than they were before that Chipotle came in. All I'm doing is making the Chipotle shareholders richer by going to it. So you just made access to that capitalistic system greater, but you did not improve the conditions of our people.
Yeah, I think that's important, setting that goal.
Yeah, and
improving.
I hope we're hearing, this could sound like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But brothers talking some real solutions, some real common sense solutions in this. Just the black business piece, helping to bring the information to our people, and not just our people, but across the spectrum. There are poor people that are taking a hit here. What does this mean for black businesses, as we have you here for 1-800-UNITE US? And I want you to talk on behalf of them a little bit. Have you been hearing from them? How many were vocal at the summit, Brother Charles?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. See, the black businesses, for the most part, are dependent on black customers, right? So the more black customers we have in the area spending money with our own business, the better off we're going to be. See, by and large, other groups spend most of their money with each other. So if you got more whites, more Hispanics, more Jews, they tend to spend the money with each other. They recycle those dollars.
Except Roscoe's.
Right.
And they're in Simply Wholesome, and we're glad you're there.
Yeah.
But Simply Wholesome, please don't. Roscoe's don't change. And Simply Wholesome, no offense, I know that's not your MO in the first place. But when my daughter and I see some places and we're like, uh-oh.
Well, what's the concern about Simply Wholesome?
None at all. But in some places, for instance, remember Veggie Soul? And now, they're not here. They're out in the Lancaster area.
Yeah.
Brother Tanai and Sister Chris doing great things, getting ready to have a comeback. But what we see a Veggie Grill.
Yeah.
That, people used to frequent them often, and now we have a Veggie Grill. I'm just saying.
Well, the thing is for us to support each other. The reason why you write such good articles in the Final Call is because we buy the Final Call.
FinalCall.com.
Right. If we were not purchasing the Final Call, we wouldn't be able to read your articles, especially one about 1-800-UNITE US.
and while we're on the Final Call, let me say, very specifically, we do need the support. We need more of the purchases. We need your subscription. And we need you to get the digital download, because let's face it, you can have it right there. You can get it on Tuesday, the day it publishes. The brothers will bring it door to door. Please continue to support them. But the strength is our people, and also that these brothers carry that paper. Look, they carry that paper. So it's not just relying for Brother Damien to go get it at, thank you again, Simply Wholesome.
See, there's a multiplier
effect
too. Not only are you getting that good knowledge from the paper, but you're also helping to support the families. Right? These brothers are able to, keep their families going, and that's so important, right?
Yeah.
See, one of the things that happened that I noticed in my lifetime is I saw like a rise and fall in black economics and black progress. Like you can think, like I remember when the song "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud" came out. That just changed a whole lot of attitudes. People standing up, couldn't wait to support each other economically, socially, emotionally. We were just strong back then, right? And then, what I noticed in the 1970s, whites were getting real concerned. Very concerned about black people taking over. They said, "Hey, taking over neighborhoods. What are we going to do?" So they did a few things. One is they legalized and promoted abortion to black women. Promoted. Like there were commercials that said, "Come on down to her medical clinic for your family planning needs."
Don't start talking about Margaret Sanger up in here. That's another show. But go ahead, continue.
And since
we'll
then,
get into that one day.
We've lost about half our population to abortion. About half. As a matter of fact, in New York City, there's more black abortions than there are live births. Right? And a lot of that has to do with economics. Again, it's so critical. It's critical. That means life or death for us to spend more money with each other.
Now, how did you link the abortions to economics?
Oh, that's the number one reason for abortion is economics. That's the number one reason. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Lots of times the man, for one reason or other, he doesn't have the ability to support a family, right? And then he leaves it up to the woman, and the woman says, I don't want to do this by myself. But there's a push to limit the black population, and that's one of the ways. Even Justice Ginsburg, she said, well, the reason we legalized it because we didn't want too many of certain groups of people.
Now, that would be that number one push in my eyes.
Richard Nixon, he made it more plain. He said, yeah, and the ones that get aborted the fastest are the little black bastards. That's what Nixon said.
Brother Charles, bring it back to business, because we're going to talk about the assault in the womb on black babies at another time.
Right.
But I see what you're saying, but we're going to bring some numbers, some information, and the true conspiracies and all of that. But we're going to
now back to the business.
To that black business.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So now, as far as business is concerned, there was one business that was allowed to flourish in our community, and that was the illegal drug business, right? So you had guys out there selling the stuff, and then you had a lot of people getting incarcerated. I think the incarceration rate, like it more than quadrupled during the 80s, like more than 4 times as many. So when you got that many people going to prison, guess what? You're going to have a lot fewer marriages. So that's what really broke up the black family, was the war on drugs. And guys in prison, guess what? They're not supporting black-owned business. They're in prison, right? So that's another attack on black businesses. So anything that can be done to reduce the black population that's out here free and able to spend money and support businesses, these other folks seem to be for. Even our music. I talked about Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. I'll compare that to the music our children are growing up listening to. I can't even repeat the stuff that they're saying out there.
That's if you can understand it, mumble rapping.
Right.
And all that.
But most of it is if it's about promoting anybody's product, it's about promoting some foreign designer. But then a lot of it is about drug use, about committing violence against each other, about totally disrespecting and dehumanizing black women. That's in the music that the corporations are putting out there now. Nothing about us supporting each other, supporting our own black-owned businesses, right?
And that's that mainstream music. What do I want to say? That's what's been allowed to get into the mainstream. Mm-hmm. Our radio stations are responsible. Our program directors are responsible. But we, Sister Charlene, believe there's a total hidden hand that's not so hidden today, but there are also some alternatives, as Brother Damien has been mentioning, and you as well, that all is not lost when we talk about gentrification, but there's some things we got to do, specific things that have to happen if we're going to make a change or survive, or, as the movement says, be neighborly in our neighborhoods. We do want improvement, but people don't want to leave. I want to make sure to point out that there's some very good artists and some music. We have Hip Hop for Justice, which has a slew of people that they promote and that they talk to. I just did an interview with Killer Mike, who helped to spearhead the Black Bank movement this past year, and also Jasiri X. We just have so much. As we continue to point out, we definitely have to talk about what is wrong. And where we need to clean up. Go ahead, Brother Charles.
And then the solutions, like you mentioned, Black Bank. We got one United Bank. I've been there, banking there for years. So when companies see, I'm out here promoting black-owned businesses, when they get a check, they see, it's a One United check. Yeah. It's from a black-owned bank. And the good thing about banks is they can leverage the money. So every time we put $1 in a bank, that bank can lend out $10.
Yeah, and do more black banks.
I wanted to just give you a historical example.
1 second.
Okay.
Jump in as well. See, a lot of entities are riding this black boycott, and this bank movement, but you got to give something back. You can't just ride it because black people are waking up, because people who are, as they say, woke are really woke. And for a moment, if it's not a return on their exchange, they're going to come. They're going to come. They're going to come, and you're going to lose out in the long run. So I'm just saying, do the right thing by our people. Go ahead, Brother Charles, and then Brother Damien.
Yeah.
See, you better get back on this gentrification, because you're getting ready to take me to another place.
It's all tied in.
Because, again, back to the politicians piece. Look, Brother Marquise Harris Dawson, and I love Brother Marquise. I reach out all the time as much as I can through Ashley for interviews. But how do we go from being on the other side with activism to doing what's happening? But I'm careful, because I don't have his voting record and all of this stuff in front of me, but I do know that we have these black politicians a lot. We have power.
Well, I talked to Marquise myself one time, but first I was just going to tell you about another black bank, and this was started by a black woman about 100 years ago. It was a St. Luke's Penny Savings Bank, and she said, if white folks aren't lending us any money, let's start our own bank. And she did, and within 3 years, her bank was able to finance 500 homes built by black men.
That's wonderful.
That's just one example.
That's wonderful.
Now getting on to Marquise, I met him at the Consolidated Realty Board, which is very important. It's a group of black real estate agents that in the 40s opened up this area to black people so we can buy property here. Because Mr. Crenshaw, he had restricted covenants. You can't sell to blacks, Asians, or Hispanics, right? And Consolidated was able to overturn that. And so I was talking to Marquise about, hey, we need to work on these jobs, contracts, things like this. You got these subway projects, different things. So a couple months later, he ended up having a job fair at First AME.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris Dawson. Go ahead.
So I think the critical piece, and when it comes to evaluating our elected officials, is get beyond our personal relationships and it's business. I mean, labor has the greatest saying.
That's right.
We don't have permanent friends. We have permanent interests.
That's right.
My interest is this community. My interests are black interests. My interest is the well-being of it. And you can very clearly identify whether an elected official is acting in those same interests or not.
Yeah. Call a meeting and talk about it.
We'll call a meeting, evaluate a voting record. We don't engage in the political accountability enough.
That's true.
And the right way.
In the right way. I mean, there's a... I've worked in politics.
Pardon me. I don't necessarily want to say the right way, because the right way that I see it, which is call the brother, call the sister, come on, let's talk about it, might not necessarily be the right way for somebody else. The right way for somebody else might be get them on the spot.
Well, I mean, there's some issues. I just wanted to correct
that for myself.
I've tried to get people to get away from what I call the town halls, where you just basically get to bloviate versus accountability forums. If the community already knows the answer and you're supposed to be representing the community, it's not a question of, hey, what do you think? It's when are you planning on doing what we are asking you to do? It's called timeline? Representation. Represent.
There it is. Gotta represent.
Right, because people sent you there. They voted for you.
Right. And you're supposed to represent their interest. But what you're saying, I mean, the best example of it is this Republican tax bill, right? You have no better explanation, because nobody likes it. Republicans don't even like it. The regular Republicans don't like it. I'm not talking about those.
The rich white landowners.
Well, that's the point. So we are now increasingly at a time where the opinions of the people don't even matter. I mean, it used to be Republicans, you could count on a tax bill. Yeah, it gave a whole lot of money to really rich people, but they didn't hurt middle class people. They not directly with their taxes. They would hurt us by reducing our services, the things that we consider critical, and doing all kinds of other things, reducing our public funding. But at the very least, they didn't increase taxes on the middle class. They had to increase taxes.
They're not caring out loud.
They're not caring out loud. And their standard bearer, the orangutan in office, is clearly an embodiment of that. He's basically saying, we don't have to wear capes no more. I don't have to be nice to women. I don't have to be nice to Muslims. I don't have to be nice to Mexicans. I don't need to. I am only here to rape and pillage. And so this is what this bill is. But see, and here's the piece, because we spend so much time talking about 45 in this bill and how it's just not good, and everybody recognizes it's bad. And it's a clear example of how the people in power care nothing except about their own wealth creation. But then we don't look down at the local level and see that it's not a whole lot better.
Because you're right, because a lot of, the states' rights issue plays a part. The local politicians, this is where we have to go.
Right. I mean, when you look at why even allow? I mean, this is the power that a city council member. If Marquise Harris Dawson and Herb Wesson, because the Mullahs in both districts, said you will not move forward this project until there are X number of affordable housing units and X number of black jobs, the project wouldn't move. That's how much power they have. If they said that this thing called LSAC, where it's not taking place so much in South LA, but it's definitely taking place in East LA, Northeast LA, Hollywood, and West LA, especially in places like Venice, that used to actually be a working class community that had a significant black population. But nonetheless, if you said this LSAC, basically where you take rentals off the market and convert them into condos, if you said if you want to do that, that's going to cost you a lot of money. You could prevent that from taking place. You could prevent demolitions of affordable housing from taking place if you increase development fees. There are all these other ways that these local elected officials really do have power to keep people in their homes, allow people to be part of the solutions and seeing a better future. And that's a key point. I always forget to make this. There's not one anti-gentrification. There's not one person fighting gentrification who's for the community staying as it is. Everybody wants to see community improvement. We wanted to see it for us. Just want to see the improvements for the existing residents and the culture and the fabric of the existing communities maintained. But I'm strongly of the opinion that ultimately we have a lot more power than we give ourselves as voting blocks.
Absolutely.
But we just need to become aware that what's taking place at City Hall, whether it's City Hall in L.A., and it's even worse in Inglewood. Don't get me started on Mayor Jim Bucks. But we have to start exercising it.
You know what we need? We need about at least 100 more Damiens in there.
No,
that's what we need.
So that we can get a charge of unity.
Because what has to happen is, what happens in politics a lot for us is we vote, right? And we elect the person, and then that's it until the next election. He's supposed to be representing us, so it's up to us to let them know what we want them to do.
Yeah, we need some policy watchers.
We had President Obama in office, bless his heart. The other groups came at him all the time. The whites, the gays, the Hispanics say, we want this, this, and this, right? But as a group, we never really did. We're just happy to see the brother in there, right? But it's very important whenever we elect somebody, we're hiring them to do a job.
Exactly.
Right? And we got to make sure that they do the job we want done.
I recall, thank you for that. I recall there were blacks that were calling on Obama to do things, and they were presenting well thought out programs and plans. He just wasn't the black president. He was a black man who was president, as Minister Farrakhan said. He was president for everyone, but to your point, and as well yours, accountability. Who holds that? I mean, one thing I do want to say is we have to come back and have this conversation because there's so many different layers to it. I think the piece about the politicians is critical. It's really very critical. Every time I pass by, like my husband gets a conniption when he thinks about the soccer stadium going up.
I know.
He just
and then Lucas Museum's going up right down the street.
He just shakes his head. But the key word for me is unity. The problem is we could get 5 people to say, okay, we're going to work toward this, and this is what we want. But then they can always throw in they, meaning the enemy or whoever we want to call the they that's the opponent at that time. They can just find a Negro somewhere and be like, here, go and oppose that. You know?
Well, I think,
cause confusion here and there. And
there's
we're on that and not on what you're saying. But go ahead.
The work of community organizing is difficult. Let's just be real. And it's only becoming more difficult even though we're getting more, vehicles for communicating with people. But, a Facebook feed is no replacement for a church hall ready for people to go out boycott an entire bus system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have an ability, in spite of all that we're thrown, to really come together. And I think the reality, and I make this line all the time, I say, ultimately every black organization is at threat if we let this gentrification piece go through, because Black Lives Matter LA will become Black Lives Matter Moreno Valley because we won't.
I don't think Black Lives is going to have it. We have 30 seconds.
I'll just make a quick point. Like what's happening in other areas with gentrification is also increased police brutality.
Exactly,
because the other folks are saying, yeah, you need to get this guy.
Absolutely.
Well, how do you make the community safe for Becky to walk at 10 o'clock at night if you don't push the black and brown people into jail,
or just even knocking on the door? Even repairmen, black repairmen, getting the police.
We got to come back, sister.
We're going to bring this conversation back. You reminded me of Dr. Julianne Malvo. By the way, she's going to be in my next story in the Final Call newspaper. Thank you, the poetess. Thank you, Morris Media Studios. Thank you, Brother Damien Goodmon. Thank you, Brother Charles Brister. FinalCall.com. We got to go. FinalCall.com for our stories and more information. And thank you for listening. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad saying, if it's impacting our community or can uplift us as a people, let's talk about it. Peace.